The trouble didn't start in the garage. It started with the HOA deciding my very existence was a problem. Miriam Cole, our self-appointed queen of the board, had a grudge the size of Texas against me from the day I moved in. I kept my property squared away, lawn trimmed, driveway spotless, flags folded sharp enough to cut glass. But what she couldn't stand was my garage, or rather what I kept in it. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from and subscribe my channel. Let's see how far this story travels. I'm an Army commander by trade. Discipline, preparation, and redundancy are baked into me. When Miriam began sending polite, but passive, aggressive letters of please, adjust exterior storage. And reminder, community standards apply to all residents. I assumed it was the typical HOA pettiness and moved on. Then the fines started arriving. A parking citation I never received notice for, a storage violation for my closed garage, and a threat about unapproved items visible from the street. Each came with an increasingly thinly veiled suggestion: we don't want trouble, but we will make things uncomfortable. I reported the harassment. I filed official complaints, photographed every letter, and logged dates. One morning I stepped outside to find my car windshield destroyed and my 2 tires slashed, and a crudely scrawled note: next time we take more. I documented every cut, every damage, every note, uploaded the footage from my porch cam and handed it to the sheriff. Morale, as the sheriff warned me, bullies like this escalate if unchecked. Keep your cameras on. Neighbors shifted when I mentioned Miriam's name. A few gave me cautious clucks of sympathy, but most kept their heads down. Board has clout, one man muttered. Another neighbor, a retired school teacher, whispered that Miriam likes to keep the place tidy, the kind of euphemism used by people who'd learned to look the other way. I didn't want to play vigilante. That's not me. I tightened security instead. Extra motion lights, upgraded cameras with cloud backups, and a discreet ring of signs that said private property video surveillance. I told my daughter to stay vigilant and to call the sheriff if anyone came to the door claiming to be board enforcement. She rolled her eyes. She knew me, but she understood. Still, the tone changed in ways that made you feel watched. Miriam began turning up at neighborhood events with a clipboard and a new smugness. Minor gripes became written warnings. I attended the HOA meeting and laid out the police report, photos, and timestamps. Miriam smiled like a woman who never lost. We're concerned about community safety. She said, you're making enemies. That phrase was her weapon. So I prepared for the kind of people who think paperwork gives them power. I called Marcus, an old friend from a unit I commanded years ago, now a contractor who slept with a rifle under his bed during exercises and knows how to move quietly. Marcus came by not because I suspected an immediate attack, but because some things are better faced with a trusted pair of eyes. We walked the property together, moved camera angles, and tested blind spots. Marcus insisted on adding a hidden feed aimed square at the garage door and a back camera covering the alley. We joked about living in a spy movie. We joked because the alternative was letting the anxiety win. I thought the cameras and a level head would be enough. I was wrong. I didn't expect what was going to happen next. I was in the kitchen with Marcus going over the camera placements when a dull thunk echoed from the garage, like someone forcing the door. I froze, then glanced at the back door camera. There they were, 4 men moving with purpose, reflective vests flashing in the feed, shadows at the lip of my garage. Without thinking, I moved up the stairs, opened the small safe, and pulled 2 old service pistols I keep for emergencies. I checked them with practiced motions, sliding one into my hand but keeping it tucked at the small of my back, so my movement looked casual. As I walked toward the garage, Marcus caught my eye and nodded once. No words. We headed down together, pistols hidden at our backs, ready for whatever Miriam's little army had decided to bring to our doorstep. Marcus and I slowed our pace, steps deliberate. My pistol sat cold against my palm, hidden behind my back. Marcus mirrored me, his hand tucked close, the 2 of us moving like we were back on deployment. The metallic grinding grew louder, the sound of a pry bar tearing into steel. Then came the muffled voices, check the racks. Commander keeps unregistered weapons in here. HOA wants them confiscated. HOA wants my guns confiscated. My jaw tightened. Miriam Cole had gone from petty fines to staging a raid, and these weren't bored teenagers. Their movements were sharp, coordinated. 4 men, reflective vests stenciled with HOA cop. In block letters, cheap badges hanging from lanyards like dollar store toys. But their hands, they gripped crowbars and bolt cutters with a confidence that screamed experience. Marcus leaned toward me, voice low enough not to carry. They're geared for smash and grab. They want your arsenal. They're not touching a damn thing, I muttered back. I cleared my throat and stepped into the doorway. Afternoon, gentlemen. All 4 of them froze. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the creak of the overhead light chain swaying. I kept my pistol low, hidden behind my back, but I could feel the weight of it anchoring me in the moment. My friend didn't need one. His presence alone was enough backup. The man in front, the tallest of the crew, recovered first. He puffed his chest out and jabbed his clipboard at me like it was a weapon. Sir, this is official HOA business. We've had complaints about hazardous material being stored here. You're required to comply. I tilted my head, calm but sharp. Hazardous material. This is my private garage. You broke into it. That's a felony. He tried to smirk. We're authorized. Marcus barked a laugh. Authorized by who? Your playgroup president, Miriam. You clowns got no jurisdiction. That stung. One of the smaller guys shifted nervously, glancing back toward the SUV parked outside. They weren't expecting resistance. Not from me, not from Marcus, and definitely not from someone who'd seen real combat. I stepped closer, my hands still tucked behind me. My voice was steady, but the edge in it could have cut glass. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to explain exactly why you thought breaking into my garage was a good idea. You're going to do it while standing still, and if any of you so much as twitch toward me, I'll consider it self-defense. That's when one of them snapped. The shorter one, jittery from the start, lunged forward with a pair of cheap cuffs like he thought he was about to make a citizen's arrest. Bad move. Training took over. I sidestepped, caught his wrist, twisted, and shoved him face first onto the concrete. He howled, the cuffs clattering across the floor. Marcus grabbed another by the vest, slamming him against the tool bench so hard the pegboard rattled. The 2 left standing suddenly didn't look so sure of themselves. Then the remaining 2 lunged, a sudden, furious charge straight at us. Marcus and I split instinctively, moving like we had on deployment. I drove a hard forearm into one attacker's jaw and swept his lead leg, dropping him cleanly. Marcus closed fast on the other with a textbook shoulder throw and a sharp elbow to the ribs that folded him over. The 4 of them hit the floor in a tangle, knocked out of their swagger and breathing hard. I pressed the barrel of my pistol into the floor beside the guy I dropped. The metallic clink echoed and his eyes went wide as saucers. Listen carefully, I said. Impersonating law enforcement is a federal crime under Title 18 U.S. Code Section 912. Breaking and entering, that's a state felony. Add attempted assault, and you're all looking at a long ride downtown. The leader stammered, trying to salvage the situation. We were just following orders. Miriam said you were a threat. There it was, the rotten root of all this. Miriam Cole. She hadn't just fined me, harassed me, and plastered notices on my door. Now she'd escalated to sending in her personal goon squad. I holstered my pistol, but kept my stance sharp. Marcus, call it in. Let's get some real uniforms here. The goons started shifting, weighing their odds of bolting, but I wasn't about to let them slip away. Not after this stunt, and as the faint wail of approaching sirens grew closer, I knew this was far from over. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. The fight ended as fast as it started. By the time the sheriff's deputies stormed into the garage, the 4 fake HOA cops were on the ground, bruised, cuffed, and moaning. My cameras had caught every second from them prying the door to me and Marcus stepping in. I gave the deputies the footage, plus the bogus fines and warning letters Miriam had shoved under my door. The deputies didn't mince words. You're all under arrest for impersonating officers, attempted burglary, and conspiracy to commit theft. The charges stacked quick. Because one had come in swinging a crowbar, they added armed criminal trespass. That alone carried potential prison time, but it didn't stop there. Under questioning, the cracks showed. One of the men broke first, muttering, We slashed his tires. Miriam told us to. Another chimed in, the windshield, too. She said it'd scare him off. That confession locked the vandalism charges in tight. What I suspected was finally spoken out loud, and it was on record. When investigators dug into their phones, the truth poured out. The texts traced straight back to Miriam Cole. She wasn't just tolerating this. She had planned the entire operation step by step, down to telling them to seize my property from the garage. The neighborhood turned fast. People who once looked away now admitted they'd been targeted too. Miriam had fined families for garden gnomes that threatened others. With liens, even ordered fences torn down. My case was just the ugliest one yet, but not the only one. I filed a civil lawsuit, property damage, harassment, and punitive damages. My attorney demanded $125,000 plus legal fees. The HOA insurer settled for $100,000 in damages and full reimbursement of my costs. Miriam herself had to cough up $15,000 personally after the judge made clear she'd abused her authority. In criminal court, the 4 imposters pled guilty to trespass, impersonation, vandalism, and attempted theft. They each walked away with probation, fines, and permanent criminal records. Miriam pled guilty to harassment and conspiracy. She lost her position, was barred from any HOA involvement in the county, and fined $10,000. When it was over, I stood in my garage with Marcus, looking over the arsenal they tried to steal. The walls felt heavier, quieter, but also safer. Neighbors stopped to shake my hand now, thanking me for standing up to her. The HOA was stripped of its fangs, restructured with real oversight. They thought they could storm into my life and take what they wanted. They didn't know I was an army commander.